Oh, okay, we'll be there. Okay, wonderful. Oh, okay. Everyone that comes is motivated to eat. The thing is, you don't have to be
You had to climb the consumers to customers have to those before
then we're going to slowly here are next 55 things you need to know about the I'm trying to get them out of the teeth. I wish we tried to go away. Yeah, pay them by
Good morning, everyone. We're going to get things started here in a few minutes. So if you want to grab any last refills of coffee or a few things to eat, we're going to begin here in about a minute. All right, good morning. Very intimate. This is nice. I'd like to welcome you all to the Celebrate Sustainability Speaker Series this morning and helping us kick off Pittsburgh Earth Day. Wish the weather was a little bit better, but welcome to Pittsburgh. And thank you to our panelists and our distinguished guests. We have a really nice lineup today and really appreciate everybody making the effort to be here. My name is Greg DeMedio. I'm a business sustainability consultant. I'm the Earth Day Green Consultant, and I'm going to be your host this morning. Pittsburgh Earth Day's overarching theme this year is about celebrating sustainability and the successes that we've had in the region. This celebration is demonstrated through many activities throughout the city. If you haven't seen the list of events, if you go to pittsburghearthday.org, you'll see that schedule. And so after this morning's presentation, I hope you'll be able to get out and experience some of those wonderful events. But it's all going to start this morning with this breakfast. Our goal today is to explore how the business community contributes to sustainability in the region, and we hope to leave you with some tips, ideas, and motivations. So prepare yourself to be inspired and challenged. And also, we're going to do a Q&A at the end of the panel. So if you would like to jot down some questions and have some things you'd like to share, Shay will be going around with a mic, and we'd welcome your input. So here's our agenda for this morning. We're going to start off with Duquesne University. They're going to present their 3rd annual Pennsylvania Sustainability Small Business Award. And then we're going to welcome KDKA TV's Rick Dayton, who will introduce our featured speaker from Bacardi, who's going to, I think, really impress you with their sustainability accomplishments and their how they're minimizing their environmental impact. And then finally, I'm going to turn it over to Matt Mahalik from Sustainable Pittsburgh, who's going to lead a panel of experts. And hopefully everyone received a handout. You'll see the bios. There's also a mugshot next to the bio, so that way you'll be able to put a name with a face. So, and I have to obviously call out and thank our terrific sponsors and partners. We could not have done this without so much support from the community across the board, business, academic. First, Velazzi's Restaurant for hosting and providing the meal this morning. Duquesne University, Chatham University, Sustainable Pittsburgh Green Building Alliance, Millcraft Investments, PNC, UPMC Health Plan, CDC, Bacardi, Pitt, Ohio, Levin Furniture, Is It Green Business Rewards, Greener Pittsburgh, and our media sponsors, KDK TV, CW TV, and Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And special thanks to Acrobatique Creative and the Mayor's Office for helping to make a large-scale Earth Day happen this year. But before I hand it over now to Dr. Jim Phillips from Duquesne University, please note we're going to have for you Twitter sphere types, we have a hashtag for today. If you've got a smartphone, if you're going to be tweeting, it's going to be PGH Earth Day Biz Talk. That's B-I-Z. So PGH Earth Day Biz Talk will be the hashtag. This, I think we're going to be streaming live. Yes? Yes. And this will also be videotaped. So if you have any colleagues that you want to text this morning and let them know, they go to the site and look for this event. There will be a link at the bottom of the page where they can see this live. We're delighted to have you here to participate and share in this forum for business sustainability. Thanks for being here. Okay, Dr. Phillips.
Getting old, need glasses. Good morning, everyone. My name is indeed Jim Phillips. I am the project director for the Duquesne University Center for Green Industries and Sustainable Business Growth, and that is a mouthful, so we're also known as just the Green Center. I would like to thank everyone involved in this Earth Day program for inviting us to be a part of it today. The Green Center is a team of faculty, staff, and students who work together to help primarily small businesses and entrepreneurs to be more sustainable and profitable in their operations. Funded by the Economic Development Administration and Duquesne University, we're able to provide services such as no-cost consulting, workshops and seminars, and other workforce development opportunities to the people and communities who need these services the most. The center and the university are proud to be involved in Pittsburgh's Earth Day activities this year, and we are very thankful to have this breakfast panel to be our stage for presenting our third annual Pennsylvania Sustainable Small Business Award and our second ever Sustainable Champion Award to a nonprofit organization with a commitment to sustainability. The Sustainable Small Business Award is how the center recognizes an area's small business that is implementing sustainable practices in their operations, and additionally, offering green or environmental services to their clients, all while remaining profitable. While we receive many applicants that fit this profile every year, the companies we strongly consider for our awards are those that are actively involved in their community, making a difference for the people, the environment, and the economy of southwestern Pennsylvania, especially the Pittsburgh area. Our award recipient this year meets all of these criteria that we look for in a sustainable small business. Since 2004, this company has provided design consulting services for 50 lead projects and was named a lead proven provider by the U.S. Green Building Council last year. A certified B Corporation The company is committed to in-house social and environmental performance as well. Additionally, our award winner has provided pro bono consulting services to several community projects in the area, and the staff volunteer their time and resources to promote sustainability in the region. I would like to present the Duquesne University Center for Green Industries' third annual PA Sustainable Small Business Award to Mr. Mark Mondor of Evolve EA.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks very much for this honor. Since our founding in 2004, we've really tried to bake sustainability in, triple bottom line into everything we do, and consulting, teaching, publishing, even volunteering, it all has to do with really the same sort of mission, which we've been able to try to lead by example, either internally or test driving different rating systems and policies so that we can then recommend them to our clients, whether they work or don't work. So, we do this every day, but it is very nice to be to get the external validation of awards like this. So we really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you very much.
While the Green Center works almost exclusively with businesses, we want to acknowledge nonprofits for their work in sustainability as well. When we received an application for the Sustainable Small Business Award from a nonprofit, we were surprised, but more importantly impressed, by what this organization has achieved. From 100% of the facility's electricity being produced on-site or complemented by off-site renewables, to diverting nearly all on-site waste from going to landfills, this organization, in their own words, walks the talk of sustainability. This organization has been a staple of Pittsburgh culture and tradition for over 120 years and has recently made a philanthropic and social impact on our area through programs such as Homegrown and Let's Move Pittsburgh, both of which aim to increase the health and wellness of children and families in southwestern Pennsylvania. I'd like to present the Duquesne Center for Green Industries' second ever Sustainable Champion Award to Mr. Richard Piacentini of Phipps Conservatory and Botanical Gardens.
Well, thank you very much. This really is a great honor for us. We're really excited to receive this award. We've had a great relationship with Duquesne University, and we appreciate all the work we've been able to do together. At Phipps, we're really committed to this idea of connecting people to plants and also showing the important connections between people, plants, health, planet, and beauty. And we think beauty is really important. That's something that's been left out of the environmental question a lot. And at Phipps, we're all about beauty. And we think we can show people that sustainable operations and projects can be beautiful and it can be inspiring. And that's the message we try to bring to everyone. So again, we're very appreciative of this award, and I'd like to thank our staff and our board. Accept this award on behalf of our staff and our board, including our board chair, Scott Lammy, and also like to recognize Mark Mondo, who worked on our project too. So this is really great. Thank you very much.
I would like to end by saying thank you again for this opportunity. Congratulations to our recipients this year. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to introduce Rick Dayton from KDK TV. He's going to announce our featured speaker.
Good morning. I know that as we travel about Pittsburgh and cover an awful lot of stories, one of the buzzwords that we hear time and time again, and it started back when Consol was being built, everybody talks about things being LEED certified these days, right? Everything is talking about how much electricity it saves, how much water it saves. What are we doing with solar energy? What are we doing with wind energy? How are we making these things more sustainable? We often hear about it in terms of real estate, right? But who knows the name? Anybody remember the name Iron Eyes Cody? Anybody know who that was? Anybody else a child of the 60s or the 70s who remembers the Keep America Beautiful campaign? and the Indian who stood by the river and had one tear running down his face. That's really the first thing that I remember. That was 1971 ad, so I'm kind of dating myself, I realize. But I know that many people, even if they weren't alive at the time that it was released, know exactly the ad that we're talking about. And some of the people who do remember may say that was one of the first times we really started to think about pollution and keeping America beautiful and making sure that we did have the natural resources for the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. That was 1971. It's also hard to believe that Earth Day started 45 years ago. And when someone said to me this morning, they said, yeah, that started back in the 70s. I said, well, that wasn't 45 years ago, was it? But it really was, that we're getting to that point where this has been going on for now 5 decades. And Earth Day actually started with the person who started it, said they were going to put it on his birthday, so he would remember when it was. And that's the reason why we have Earth Day. Well, we talked about companies and building and all the success stories that are going on in here in Pittsburgh. And there are so many that we cover at KDKA every day. But the other thing that's really neat is how companies are thinking about what are they going to leave behind? What's their footprint going to be? Are they going to be taking more than they're putting in? Are they going to be leaving more behind than what they actually make? And then one of the reasons that we want to introduce our speaker today is because Bacardi has done an amazing job of making sure that they are introducing us to a new term that maybe some of us haven't heard before, and that is a zero net impact on the environment. If you think about a manufacturing company, you think about the things that they have to do. They have to bring a product to market, they have to source it, and they have to produce it, and then they have to package it. Well, Bacardi has managed to do this in such a way that they can do that, they say, and they can get to a point where there is zero net impact. So as we introduce our speaker today, Bacardi knows that sustainability is a good way to be a business. You think about what it does for your bottom line, there are the dollar and cents reasons why it makes tremendous sense. The other thing is when you look at the energy that they're using, they have dramatically decreased the amount of energy that it takes to be a manufacturing company, to be a distiller of fine rums and alcohol. But the other thing is that with their greenhouse gas emissions, they're down 48% while they're also achieving those energy goals. And here's the thing that's remarkable. When you look at what they have done with water usage at Bacardi, it's hard to fathom how they could have cut their water usage by 70% since 2006, which is a reduction of 1.3 billion liters of water, enough water in that less than 10-year time period that everybody on the face of the earth could have one glass of water. They've reduced it by that amount. So their waste reduction is also down, including one facility in Germany where right now there is a 0% waste that goes to landfill. They're doing remarkable things, and it's why it's my privilege to bring up Matt Tiddes is here from Bacardi Limited. He has flown to Pittsburgh specifically to be here with us this morning and talk about their success story. And I think you'll be fascinated to hear what they're doing. Matt, welcome to Pittsburgh. Sorry for the rain, but at the same time, it shows that we're recycling that too, right? Welcome.
Good morning. How's everyone doing today? Great. Thank you very much for having me. I represent Bacardi. My name is Matt Tiddes. I'm the national ambassador for Bacardi Rum, and it's a super honor to be here this morning. As an ambassador, I deal usually with rum training and talking to bartenders and trade about how we're creating amazing rums for everyone to taste and how they are mixable within cocktails today in the cocktail culture. But it's an amazing honor to be a part of this panel and to be here today to talk about the environmental sustainability of Bacardi rum, not only just in the U.S., but globally. As part of this organization, we strive to be the leader in environmental sustainability, and we've been this leader since day one. We were one of the largest family-owned companies in the world, and we first were created in 1862 by our founder, Don Facundo Bacardi Maso. We speak a little Spanish, by the way. So Don Facundo had his vision. He was a small man from Spain, and he traveled all the way from Spain to Cuba for an idea to make something of himself, to create something that has never been done before. And through time, he moved to Cuba in a little small town called Santiago de Cuba in about 1831, and decided to start to create this amazing style of rum. And it was the first of its kind, essentially, Rum back then was called aguardiente, which meant firewater. There wasn't really any refinement to it. There wasn't any production towards it. And so he had a goal to create the world's best tasting rum. And with that, he decided to do one of his, I guess, more leadership roles in sustainability is to create his rum with old whiskey barrels. So we've been starting this sustainability heritage since day one in 1862, when Don Facundo looked at an old bottle of whiskey and decided to repurpose it to age our rum, to create and mellow and smooth the characteristics of this so-called aguardiente, to turn it into a really rich, beautiful, robust rum, to repurpose this whiskey barrel and to use it again. Sorry about that. It's been a part of our DNA since day one. And in fact, we just unveiled our environmental initiative called the Good Spirited Initiative. The Good Spirited Initiative is building on current programs that focus on reducing water, reducing energy, and creating a reduction of greenhouse emission gas, which we're super proud of. As the speaker mentioned, we've established models with sustainable sugarcane. I think so. Sugarcane is a very important part of our product. We're creating all of our rum from sugarcane. So the way we're trying to source and where we're trying to source is very important for Bacardi. We provide most of our sugarcane from a little small island of Fiji. And on this island, we've actually initiated with a company, an organization, a nonprofit organization called Brusuco. This is an organization that protects the sugarcane fields of Fiji. And in fact, actually helps protect the reefs that are outside of Fiji as well. So it's something that Bacardi is constantly thinking about, reducing its impact. We're also reducing the weight of packaging by more than 7% in 2006. In 2006, we decided to make a stand with this green initiative. And as we mentioned earlier, we've made huge strides in that industry, sourcing 40% of our sugarcane from certified sustainable sources, reducing water by over 55%, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 30%. This is a huge accomplishment and a reduction in packaging by over 10%. We are a global company that is focused around changing the world and being the leader of this new generation. We are the leader of environmental sustainability in the industry, and we're proud to be a part of that. Bacardi is a member of the community at first, and the biggest focus for us is driving culture as well. I think that, you know, I've had some notes here, but I'd rather talk from the heart because I feel it when I work with Bacardi in the offices every single day. When we talk to each other, we're constantly thinking about what can we do to impact not only the environment but the society in general, to leave a good footprint for us in the future and our future generations. And so as part of Bacardi and being a national ambassador, we're constantly focused on talking about rum and education, but also talking to each other within our own company and talking about the culture with environmental sustainability. I think that's really where I've found the passion for this, to speak about changing my views and changing the ways I live my life day in, day out. It's the small changes that I think go a long way. And Bacardi's done that for me personally, and I hope that I can do that with every other generation that I teach from the Bacardi standpoint and within this company. So I really appreciate being here, and I look forward to being in the panel. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to speak to them. So thank you so very much.
Thanks, Matt. That was terrific. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Matt now to the panel. We may be expecting Grant Urban. He may be coming in a little bit late. He's coming from a DEP meeting. So, all right, Matt Mahalik.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Greg. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Matt, for the great story. I'm Matt Mahalik, Program Manager at Sustainable Pittsburgh. I'm a moderator here this morning for a distinguished panel that we have. Before we begin the panel, I just wanted to communicate how much this moment means to me and to the sustainable business movement This is the 20th year of my journey in working in sustainable business, literally this month. I began as a case writer as a graduate student at the University of Virginia Business School, working on case studies of innovation. And on a whim, I was given a tip to go talk to the dean of the architecture school at the University of Virginia, William McDonough, who had just begun a project to look at the interior design of products that go in buildings and looking at their ecological impact and footprint. It was a struggle for me to get money to go and do the interview of the people who were involved in the whole manufacturing process in Switzerland and Germany to get that done. And it was a challenge to get that case even taught in the business school. In fact, the business case that was being taught at that time as the quintessential example of how businesses should be run was Enron. Enron, because of it being a business that doesn't have bricks and mortar and all of the information exchange that was going on, that was the thing that was very important. And so 20 years later, lo and behold, look at the massive change that has happened in the way business is going on. Enron is a footnote in history for how things should not be done, for how a business should be run, specifically because they didn't embody sustainable strategies, financial or otherwise. And we have an amazing group of leaders in our region because Pittsburgh embraced sustainability as a strategy for regional economic development. So it's my honor to serve as your moderator for this today. And what we're going to do is we're going to have each of our panelists briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll begin a quick dialogue. And then eventually we'll invite the audience to ask direct questions of the panel here. But this panel is representative of many leading organizations in southwestern Pennsylvania, and it's an honor for me to be here. So I'm going to pass this microphone off to Mark, can you please kick us off?
Okay, thank you. Mark Mondor. And yes, I had the very good fortune of being able to tell you a little bit about Evolve and our Evolvers a few minutes ago. Like I said, we started in 2004. Evolve is a green building and sustainability consulting and design firm. And we've really started with that and kept it all the way through. But like Matt said, the whole idea of sustainability has evolved literally before our eyes. It's one of the fastest movements in design construction, in business, in the relationships between organizations, whether it's B2B or B2C, and how sustainability has evolved is also evolving along with us, through education, through awareness, through technology, through opportunities. And we're pleased to see that Pittsburgh has developed more frameworks and more scaffolding available for different organizations, large corporations, small corporations, nonprofits, and there's a community here that welcomes these strategies and gives sort of support. I'm thinking of programs that the Sustainable Pittsburgh has, programs that the Green Building Alliance has, programs that the city now is putting into place. So all of these together are creating a really rich ecosystem, if you will, for sustainability ideas. So if sustainability, if business is a means of expression, which it really is legally, and that's one of the things about our country is the threshold to getting into business is really relatively low, then we can choose to express our business however we choose. And sustainability for us has been a way that we've been able to bake in these ideas and these values through everything we do. And so we've been able to really create a culture that we share, that we are happy to share with, whether it's pro bono, whether it's lecturing, whether it's with clients on a consulting basis. But the idea of teaching, of showing, of adopting frameworks that are able to get clients or organizations to aspire to back in. And what's very rewarding is to see how these frameworks can help different organizations shoot higher and then higher and then higher still. So something like the B Corporation to become a benefit corporation, and that's worth a shout out because that is an alternative way of doing business. You establish yourself as a B Corp rather than just an S Corp, say. And what you're doing is modifying your bylaws to say, we are looking at the benefit for all of our stakeholders, not just our shareholders. And in so doing, you take a look at how you're performing as an organization. And in our case, we were doing really well in certain areas, but in other areas had gone unaddressed. So we did certain things like a waste audit, or we actually proved that we were carbon neutral as a company. And the idea of frameworks is that it allows us to
that everyone has a chance to introduce themselves.
Okay.
We want to go 1 minute each. That's the goal. So far, you're at 3 minutes. So 3 times.
All right. So hopefully we'll talk more. Thank you.
I'll keep it quick. I'm sorry. I'm the national ambassador for Bacardi Rum. I've worked with Bacardi for now 5 years. Before with Bacardi, I worked with the Walt Disney World Company. I come from a hospitality background, and both companies are leading companies that are in environmental sustainability. I'm proud to be a part of them. So let's get to this.
I'll be about 15 minutes. My name's Lucas Pyatt. I'm the president of Millcraft Investments. Millcraft Investments is a full-service real estate company, a developer, owner, and operator of office, retail, residential, and hospitality projects, with the main focus here in Western Pennsylvania. A little history real quick about our company, because it's interesting because it mirrors Pittsburgh's history. People say, what does Millcraft mean? Well, we were in the steel industry, and we worked in the steel mills. That's where the name Millcraft came from. And about 15 years ago, we began to evolve. And through that evolution, we have focused on building sustainable urban walkable environments, and are proud to have been one of the pioneers that started the revitalization of downtown Pittsburgh. And you're actually sitting right now in one of this is actually the second building we redeveloped here, which was the former G.C. Murphy building. Shout out to Julian Velazzi. Thanks for having us here today. He was one of the people who believed in what was happening down here and made a commitment financially to that. And this is one of the best Italian restaurants in the city. So definitely spread the word if the word isn't spread already. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being here to see us speak. And we're really proud to have the opportunity. Thank you.
Aurora Sherrard, Vice President of Innovation at Green Building Alliance. For those of you who don't know GBA, we were founded in 1993. We're one of the oldest regional green building organizations in the country. We're also a U.S. Green Building Council chapter, founded the same year as the U.S. GBC nationally. So Pittsburgh has been doing green buildings just as long as they've been happening on the national stage. We have the privilege of working with every organization at this table at a different level and over a long period of time, working towards healthy and high-performing places for everyone. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Laura Quinn. I'm from Scalo Solar Solutions, and I not only do we put the solar on your roof, we educate you along the way by really embedding the sustainability with all of our customers, really building those relationships and really getting out there and getting to know you. We want to provide that lasting relationship. So we're there and we want to meet you.
Hi, I'm Tom McCagno. I'm Assistant Professor of Business and Sustainability at Chatham University, specifically the Fox School of Sustainability. Some of you may or may not know we're opening purpose-built, ground-built, up from the ground sustainability campus at Eaton Hall. It officially opens in fall. In our programs, we teach two main programs, so food studies, looking at agriculture and food, which is always nice. And sustainability, just Masters of Sustainability, Bachelors of Sustainability. We also have a dual MBA and sustainability program. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is encourage, inspire, and give experience and skills to the next generation of business leaders and leaders in other areas. We can talk more later.
Great. Good morning. My name is Benson Gabler. I'm the Manager of Corporate Sustainability at the PNC Financial Services Group. PNC's environmental commitment has focused on our green buildings. And we now have 254 LEED certifications that we've achieved over the past 15 years. So something that we got started because of the Green Building Alliance has become the way we do business. And in addition, our team works on employee engagement, operational improvements, and public reporting on environmental issues.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Lammy with UPMC, and it's great to be with all of our panelists this morning to talk about sustainability, which is very important to all of us, including at UPMC. At core, UPMC is a population health enterprise, and our mission is to basically provide outstanding patient care, but beyond that, to really improve the health status of our region's population. So two, I guess, takeaways that are very well known, at least among industry experts, is that basically 80% of the determinants of one's health status are related to psychosocial and socioeconomic and environmental conditions and have nothing to do with the delivery of healthcare services. And the other key message point is over 70% of all healthcare costs are attributed to chronic disease conditions that are related to lifestyle behavior issues, which means that basically if we all were well educated, understood good nutrition, and practiced healthy lifestyle, we could eliminate all of this unnecessary cost and the challenges, and quite frankly, probably one of the largest risks to our economy and our national security is basically a runaway healthcare system that's basically attempting to serve the needs of a population that's very unhealthy and leading unhealthy lifestyles. So it's very important for us to expand and extend the green movement, if you will, not just to buildings and facilities, but to talk about the human capital implications of what we're addressing. And really rooted in all of this is basically if we could address the educational needs, the training and the workforce development needs of our populations, and really incorporate health literacy, financial literacy, and a lot of kind of basic lifestyle skills and good nutrition and lifestyle behavior practice that's healthy, not just for the environment, but for individuals, that basically we would green all of humanity. And so it's really important for us at UPMC that we partner with all of you around this table and all of our community stakeholders to really address some of the root cause issues of the problems that we have within our society. So it's great to be with you this morning.
Thanks, Scott. Of course, today's Earth Day, a big day for the mayor's office, and so we're very fortunate to be able to have Grant Irvin with us today. So, Grant, if you could.
Sure, thanks, and sorry for being late. I was just at the ITRC conference down at the Wyndham, so I had the opportunity to talk with a lot of environmental regulators. So, sorry for being late. My name is Grant Irvin. I serve as a sustainability manager for the city of Pittsburgh. We work on sustainability both from an internal standpoint in terms of improving city operations, but also externally looking to find ways to make the city of Pittsburgh a more sustainable place to live. So thanks for the opportunity to join the conversation.
Thanks. With a wide array of leadership and value that's being brought to our region, we have an audience that's curious. Some may just be getting started with sustainability, some may be down the path, but I think everyone is always interested in how things got started at your organization. What was the seed and how did it take root in your organization, your sustainability program? So I'll offer it up, see who would like to go first. Anyone want to volunteer? Yeah, go ahead, Vincent.
I'm happy to start.
Yeah, thanks.
As I mentioned, PMC's environmental commitment actually started back in the late 1990s, and it was during the development of First Side Center. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the building. It's a 650,000 square foot operations building on the Monongahela. And it was going to be just your standard operations building when the Green Building Alliance approached PMC. And they talked to them about building green. And back in the late 1990s, you could imagine in the banking world that that term didn't really mean much. But fortunately, they talked to them in business terms, and the fact that it was going to reduce your operating costs, it was going to increase employee satisfaction, and all these things that actually really aligned well with a corporate real estate goal. And so, I give a lot of credit to the Green Building Alliance as well as to Gary Salson, our director of corporate real estate, who made the decision that even though the design was complete, construction was started, that we weren't going to move forward until we've adopted these different practices. So looking at the type of materials, I think at that time there was probably, we were looking at recycled content, there was probably like 4 different carpets that you could pick from. So very limited options, but adding, it was the first time we moved offices from the exterior, moved them on the interior, allowed 90% of the occupants to have access to natural light, which is kind of standard now, but at the time was a big change. And seeing the benefit of that building, it was at the time the largest LEED certified building since been surpassed. But they made the decision that all new construction and major renovations would achieve LEED certification. That's been a commitment we've stayed true for the past 15 years and continue to do so.
All right, Benson, apparently the story is Jim Rohr said, we can't do a green building. Those are Mellon's colors.
That's a comment that the CEO of PNC just made on Friday.
So I love
Yeah.
PNC's sustainability story, not because GBA is part of it, but because, you know, it's the example of how a single person in an organization had his door to sustainability in front of him and walked right through it and brought a whole organization with him. And so, you know, different organizations are at different phases in their sustainability journey. We still work with organizations today that have not walked through that door. But I always think of that door analogy. It's actually an analogy from Interface Carpet, which has made a huge sustainability commitment, net zero impact, just like Bacardi. And they made it in the late 90s. Ray Anderson is like one of my personal sustainability heroes. If you haven't ever seen his TED Talk, you should watch it. He's an amazing man, or was an amazing man. But, you know, Interface talks about this door. And when we work with organizations that haven't yet walked through that door, you know, sometimes for those of us who have been working in this for a long time, it can be a little bit frustrating, but I always think it's very important to figure out how we all got here and make sure that we continue to bring along people who are coming behind us.
Yeah, I think that's important, especially the zero net impact and just being leaders. You know, it sounds like, you know, being a leader and using your role as being with Bacardi being such a large global company, you know, making sure that we are the leaders and leading all other spirit companies to strive to that goal is I think a huge important responsibility for us as a company. And you know, being able to say that in 2017 we're going to reduce by 40% of our water, to reduce by 55% of our overall energy, to a goal of 2022 to have 100% all of our products sustainable. I think it's a large and ambitious goal, but it's one that we should be doing and one that I think should be leading other businesses within the spirit industry to do the same.
So we have green envies compared to PNC, for sure. But so I guess, you know, really the change started really with me because I've always been an advocate of environmentalism. Actually, I went to college to be an environmental engineer. Then I looked at the workload and I said, I want to be a communications major. but I was always committed to it. So when I came to the company, really nobody talked about LEED certification or sustainability. And I don't think really there was much discussion even in any workplace, with the exception of places like PNC that got it very early. But our first LEED certified building was in downtown Washington for a project that was built for a company, unfortunately it's no longer in business, Land America Financial Group, but we built a 145,000 square foot building there, and we got a LEED certification on that project. And it was really before anyone south of Pittsburgh even talked about LEED. It was in the 2004. Since then, every building we've built has achieved sustainability matrix, whether it's LEED certified or others. But for us, it's a real simple discussion point, because an existing building is the greenest building that you can develop. And you're sitting in it right now. So for instance, our first 3 projects in downtown Pittsburgh were all adaptive reuse. So Pyatt Place was the former Macy's or Lazarus department store. That was an adaptive reuse project. This was a historical adaptive reuse project. And then Riverview was also an adaptive reuse of a 1955 state office building. So, and all of those have LEED designation. But I don't think it's absolutely required that you have a LEED designation, because I think if you do it the right way, you're going to be okay either way. But just the fact that you're building in a sustainable urban downtown environment, that makes a lot of sense for us. We have to make sense of sustainability from the standpoint of attracting investors and making good returns on that money. We can't just spend enormous amounts of money to reach certain plateaus. But it's funny because we're seeing now that investors are requiring sustainability. So it makes sense, not just because you're doing the right thing for the earth and the environment, but you're doing the right thing because you're going to attract more tenants and you're going to attract more investors into your project. So not only does it make sense that way, it makes sense for the pocketbook.
So a common thing that I've heard from the people who commented so far is it started with someone that wanted to get things going with sustainability, and they somehow took the risk, but they were convinced that it was something that would pay off. So it began with that, but then you have to make a business case. You have to convince investors. You have to show that the building's design pays off financially and the operational costs justify that. So there's that transition that occurs. So maybe someone can talk a little bit how that transition evolved, the larger conversations that began in your organization once something got started.
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Well, our journey goes back probably more than 20 years, actually. We've been, for example, Diane Holder, our CEO of the insurance operations, was also, responsible for Western Sykes operations, and she has a population health orientation. So we've been on this journey for quite some time. We also had the great fortune and privilege to recruit Allison Robinson, who came over to us from Duquesne's sustainability program years ago and helped to organize our internal efforts to really focus on basically just coordinating and communicating and integrating some of our initiatives across the health system. So we have, for example, our occupancy in the U.S. Steel building. We've worked closely with Mark and Bob Hodnick, who's here today, with the landlord of U.S. Steel, which I think that building represents about 5% of the utility use in the central Pittsburgh district grid. UPMC now represents 40% of the occupancy, and also I understand our energy footprint as a result of the greening of that building over the last half dozen years has resulted in reductions of energy consumption by 40%. So it's a good start, taking that an iconic building and really focusing on that kind of an endeavor. But really the challenges that we all face are again addressing some of the human capital implications of all of this that we're trying to address. We've worked with the Pittsburgh Community Food Bank for the last almost 20 years, increasing the nutrition value of the product that goes through the food bank, so that basically the recipients, particularly the low-income at-risk population, is receiving nutrition content, and it's not exacerbating health problems. It's actually helping to resolve and address those kinds of issues. So there's a lot to this sustainability movement that addresses not just, again, the facilities, but a lot of the human issues. We founded with Kathleen Hauer from Global Links, a medical supply waste recovery program that also serves local organizations that need some of these recycled supplies, as well as I believe there's about a dozen countries that now are served with the reuse of those supplies that heretofore would go into a waste dump. So there's literally hundreds and hundreds of these kinds of initiatives that we all need to collectively focus on.
So you bring up a great point about partnerships in the community. Pittsburgh is very rich in being able to offer solutions. We've heard from businesses so far, but there are a number of organizations that are on the end of a request for getting involved for a business to help support them. So I don't know if one of these organizations, or the mayor's office is a great example of that.
Yes.
What's it like to be approached by a business, and how does that relationship unfold?
Well, I think there's several common themes in a continuum of history that Pittsburgh has seen with regards to sustainability. And those common themes really have civic, political, and corporate leadership that is the theme that runs through all of them. So if you think about, Pittsburgh's history, the environmental movement, for better or for worse, really started with Mayor Lawrence and Richard King Mellon to solve serious civic and environmental issues with regard to air quality. If you fast forward into the 80s and 90s, it was about how do we reclaim brownfields, how do we reimagine former industrial spaces. And then you start to get into kind of the 3.0. If you have 1.0, 2.0, then you get into 3.0 from a city standpoint. It was really, again, civic, business, and political leaders who established our sustainability program with the Green Government Task Force. Right now, we're starting to edge into kind of what I would call the 4.0, which is really how do you embed the practices of sustainability throughout operations, throughout policy making. So you're starting to think more holistically, more cogently with regards to every decision that you make. And you can't do that without, those three pillars of civic, government, and political leadership working together.
I think that's where we at Scalo Solar and we are the sister company to Burns and Scalo is really hitting the key here where our partnerships are very strong with GBA and the education partnership. We really strive to create those lasting bonds and in just creating those relationships. It's not just about let's throw some things in the recycling bin. Let's create those relationships with the children to educate that populace for our future and how do we get in that niche market of young and how do we reach their parents and into different facets of the market. So it's really hitting different places, but also thinking about the cultural and the social of not only sustainability, but how do we reach everyone? So it's not just thinking about an organization about solar or roofs. It's about how do we get everyone on board and really educating.
Well, you mentioned youth, and the good thing about that is they can pretty much educate us. I think because they live, they're living it from day one. We're probably on the back end of what they understand. It's like computers and so forth. I thought I used to know a lot about computers, but I guess I don't. But no, I think the youth get it, and I think they embrace it. Not only embrace, but they demand it, particularly when it relates to housing stock. And what they expect to have in their homes and in their apartments. And I think that is kind of a little similar to what I mentioned before about attracting tenants and attracting investors. Not only do the investors require, but the clients require as well. So, from our standpoint, it makes a ton of sense to follow through with that.
One thing we noticed early on, when we would consult with a project to get a LEED certification, for instance, they'd say, "Okay, good, thanks for the plaque. Glad that's over." And what we started to feel remiss about was that all the teaching and the incorporation was really not integrated, and our approach has evolved, if you will, to really get a sort of engagement by the organization, whether it's a business, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's doesn't matter the scale. It can be a massive corporation or somebody much smaller. But the whole idea is, what does sustainability mean to you, and how is it important to you? For us to come in and say, you need to do this and you need to do that, like an expert, is an arrogant approach. What we really try to do is make the client or the organization aware of the different frameworks and what the concepts are, make sure everybody's on the same page about that, and then let them decide what they want to do and let them aspire. And once they establish those goals and they internalize those goals, then we know which way to go, because it really has to be an expression of the organization. And somebody like Phipps is different than CMU, which is different than Millcraft, which is different than UPMC, which is different than PNC. Every group, every organization has its own goals and what sustainability means to them. So the key is to tailor the approach to them. Once you do that and get everybody to buy in on it, then the sustainability solutions can become durable. And that's really what you want. You want for those goals to survive through thick and thin, through changes of leadership, through good years and bad years. You want for them to remain and be durable and then be an expression of them.
Yeah, and I think this culture piece, it can't be minimized, right? We've all worked or work in organizations that have their own culture, and you go to another organization, it's very different. So if you bake in decision making and types of thinking. That may take years, decades in some types of organizations. But as you change that culture into a culture of sustainability, it pays off in droves. We've seen it from the top down in FIPS and the bottom up in other organizations. It can take a visionary, it can take somebody at the bottom. But GBA loves this cohort model too. So you take a group of organizations and you have them learn together. And we do this with our Green and Healthy Schools Academy. They learn from each other, they learn from national experts, they learn from local thought leaders, all at the same time, hearing what other people are doing, and then you start to move not just a single building or a single organization, you start to move a sector towards something better, and that's a really powerful thing.
What about on the international scene, if you could talk about some of the partnerships and things that you use for your sustainability work?
So internationally, I would say as part of like an advocacy team, in general, when we talk about culture, advocacy, we're reaching out to the bartenders, to the trade that are using our products at bars and restaurants. And so what we're really trying to do is to talk to them about growing their own crops or growing their own produce, and creating their own specialty syrups in-house, using their own environments and local regions to create their products. So for instance, I'm in Chicago, and in Chicago we have a lot of bars and restaurants. And part of that, I go to each restaurant, go to each bar. We talk about their cocktails and how we can.
So I just say that sounds like a rough job.
Yeah. It's a rough job, but someone's got to do it, right? I know that does sound a little odd, right? So sorry about that. But a part of this is creating programs. For instance, I created a program within just working with Walt Disney and learning about environmental sustainability, and with Bacardi, is that all right? What can I do personally? So what I did is we started to create kind of a communal garden out, and I live in a city, and you don't have too many gardens, and so I created a communal garden for bartenders, restaurateurs to come out to grow their own herbs, to grow their own produce, to then bring back to their restaurant to make their own syrups and different foods that they can use within their industry. And small things like that, I think, can really go a long way. And that's like the teaching portion of how working with Bacardi and learning about sustainability, and then reaching other generations that might not necessarily be with a company like Bacardi, but they're learning with us. So I think that's really awesome, and I'm happy to do those things.
That's great. So we've heard a lot about how things got started, kind of where we are now, how things are rolling in Pittsburgh and internationally. I'd like to just shift a little bit. Grant mentioned about 4.0 of sustainability, where we're headed, what this moment means, and what's on the horizon for us from a sustainability perspective. So I'd like to sort of offer that up to the panelists. Talk about where we are now and where we're headed as far as sustainability, and what does that mean? Small question.
I can add a bit of just thoughts about in business that I can imagine there's two broad directions to look. One is that the corporate sustainability role will get stronger as an independent function in organizations. At the same time, as you were highlighting earlier, developing it, tailoring it to their styles. Some will make it part of their core function. So accounting will have to take sustainability, marketing will have to take sustainability, so that there'll be two clear models, independent and just integrated within the roles.
About 5 years ago, I gave a speech on, probably not the right group to talk about this with, but I did it anyway. Went over the ULI transportation report that it was for the highway engineers, so probably wasn't the best place to do that, because it was basically saying we need to forget about highways and focus on high-speed rail. So they didn't love it too much. But anyway, I think as a country, we need a full, comprehensive high-speed rail push for improving our infrastructure and making that sustainable. And I think, we talk about recycled materials and building things the right way, and focusing on the adaptive reuse, and focusing on the urban environments in the city centers. And we're seeing these people move back to the city centers. Suburbia has grown so far out that it really has become unsustainable. Improving this infrastructure that we have under Highway Superfund is broke. It's going to be bankrupt. So we can't continue to pave roads that don't move the masses the way that we need to. So I think from a national standpoint, to really become the sustainable country, not just here in Pittsburgh, but country, we need a president and a Congress and leadership that can really get us up to the global par where we need to be, and when compared to China and Europe, where we need to be with moving of mass transit through our country, because that's one of the biggest polluters and financially unsustainable methods. And when GM sponsored Futurama back at the World's Fair, it kind of paved the path for us, literally, that the world revolved around the car. It's time for maybe someone else to sponsor the next World's Fair, maybe Bombardier or something like that. Right?
Just to insert a little bit of information, there's a current very good article in the National Journal about the state of rail in the United States, directed at congressional policymakers. So it's worth checking that out currently.
I mean, one thing that I'd offer up, and I think because this is the right audience, because I talk to the highway transportation lobby a lot. They're a tough group, but this is the right audience. I think one thing is this idea of integrated and collaborative thinking. And one thing that I would offer up with that is waste. Our relationship with waste, and because we're in a restaurant, I'm going to single out food waste. The amount of food waste that we produce and contribute to landfill could have alternative and positive purpose. So thinking about how we can re-engineer our waste collection systems to create energy, to create fuel stock, and drive both our energy consumption and production needs is one way that I think that here in Pittsburgh specifically, we can become a global leader. And the reason is because we have the people in the room that can make something like that happen. And the way that we do that is to get around the table to find kind of the common opportunity and common solutions. But also we have development opportunities that could catalyze that. So if you think about the Hazelwood site or the opportunities in the Lower Hill and the Uptown, to think about district energy systems, to think about district heating and cooling and how we operate new development at the district scale, there's a real creative opportunity that we have there, I think.
Yeah, and so locally we have a lot of big parcels to develop, I think, that are great opportunities. We also have an opportunity to set a really big goal, measure how we're getting there, and tell other people how we're getting there. And so we do that a lot at GBA through the Pittsburgh 2030 district. Those are a certain set of goals: carbon neutral buildings by 2030 if they're new construction, 50% reductions in energy, water, and transportation emissions below baseline by 2030 for existing buildings. But I think there are a lot of things that Pittsburghers have sort of had big ideas over the past, say, 10 years that got shot down for one reason or another. And I think it's time to bring those out of the closet and revisit them. Right? Like we know what the issues are. We know where we need to be. We need to set a big goal about where we're going. The upgrade of the Pittsburgh Climate Action and Resilience Plan that the city is taking the leadership on through the Pittsburgh Climate Initiative right now is a huge opportunity to do that with focus on greenhouse gas emissions locally.
And I would just add, similar to what we've been seeing over the past few years, a critical piece is investment in the urban core. I think that that's just essential to a region's vitality. It's fosters innovation, fosters sustainable growth. It's just been really neat to see what's happened with some of the development. A lot of people at the table that the organizations have done, and see that change in the city, denser growth, and I think it'll be neat to see where that takes us in the next few years.
So,
Yeah, I think certainly the infrastructure requirements of the transit grid, the energy grid, and a lot of those basic infrastructure elements are really important. But equally, maybe even more important as we kind of evolve as a society, is to really focus on the failure of public education and public health policy. It's just completely insane that our country allows us to have urban public health or education systems that have in excess of 50% dropout rates. It's really creating this divide in society. So we really need to focus on the collaboration to really come up with rational, holistic public education, public health policies, and the like to really address a lot of those needs. And I know in Pittsburgh, there's a lot of energy and efforts around trying to address some of those core issues.
So a lot of the plans and policies have been worked out over the past few years. It's kind of a time for deployment and thinking about coordination and investment and how to move forward. So we're at a precipice, not a precipice, on a threshold moment for really precipices. We've heard from the panel and some things to get us kicked off. We have some time for the audience to ask our panel some questions about what you're interested in. And so please keep the mics.
Okay. So many people here know me.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Allison Robinson. I'm the Sustainable Coordinator for UPMC. Okay. Question. All right. We're talking about sustainability here, and we know that there's basically three components: the fiscal, the socioeconomic, and the environmental. And we focus heavily on the environmental and a little bit on the socioeconomic and a hint of fiscal. Now, my question has to do with this evolving new sharing economy and how does it relate to the sustainability that we are trying to develop, because it seems to be its own module and it seems to be the embodiment of sustainability. But then again, you have this core group of people who are not part of that sharing economy, and you have to blend the two if you're going to go forward into the future. So I'm going to start with Thomas Mercado, okay, and try to talk about how we would integrate a completely different culture with the prevailing culture of mercantilism and commercialism and, basically that type of economy.
Sharing economy.
Yeah. All right, sharing economy. Yeah. Well, I think it has to start, individuals start. I mean, there's been research by Procter & Gamble that there's at least 15% of the population, and that applies globally, that's dark green, if you will, and that they can take a lead on this. And I think we've already seen that there's some websites out there that you can rent things. And actually, what is it in Pittsburgh? There's the center where you can use the machines. Tech shop. Yeah. So in that sense, some of that's getting there. But I think it's running public education programs to show people how this fits in their normal lives, because a lot of people don't see the connection between their day-to-day lives and the sharing economy. So I would say showing people how it's relevant to them, and then creating additional opportunities so that they can apply it in their daily lives.
We're seeing that sharing is taking its root even in the workplace, where it's changing the way that people utilize office space. For instance, CB Richard Ellis is completely redoing their space at US Steel Tower to have a sharing environment where they actually share